al doctor Portilla García, de su hermano Fernando González. There's a lot of love in this room. Tenemos también el honor de tener presente a nuestro compañero Julio Gamandilla Peña, el embajador de Cuba, de Canadá. Otro compañero que no necesita presentación, el cónsul general de Toronto, de Cuba en Toronto, Javier Dumont. Y tenemos también la presencia de la cónsul de la República Bolivariana de Venezuela aquí en Toronto. Un aplauso para la compañera. Y tenemos aquí la presencia de una gente muy especial que durante todos estos años no bajó la lucha, la intensidad de la lucha por la liberación de nuestros hermanos en Cuba, y esos son todas las personas que están aquí presentes. Un aplauso para todos ustedes. Y nuestro compañero, nuestro hermano, el doctor Portilla García. Un aplauso para él, por favor.
Well, I want to say a few words because I think the important thing that we have today is your presence and the presence of our hero, Fernando. I understand perfectly that everybody's waiting for his words, and I am honored to be here with you and him and all the presence. Liz told me minutes ago that I must speak some facts about the Cuban internationalists. I'm honored to talk about that because, well, my generation begins in Africa, you know. New generations are everywhere. Cuban has a tradition of help everybody. Cuba never said no in health. And when there was a big earthquake in Chile in 1960, a group of Cubans, doctors, was in Chile present. When Algeria was liberated from France, a group of Cuban doctors, headed by our Vice President, Dr. Machado Ventura, was in Algeria. And then began the tradition. Today, we have, from those days to today, we have been sending more than 140,000, let's say, health workers, because there are doctors, nurses, many teams of different specialists, and in 108 countries all over the world, almost all over the world. Today we are working in 67 countries, and we have more than 52,000 doctors, technicians, and nurses in 67 countries today. I like to say that Cuba never said no, because last year when the Ebola epidemic was present, the General Secretary of the United Nations, Mr. and the General Director of the World Health Organization, WHO, Dr. Margaret Chan, called our government and talked with our President, General Raúl Castro, and they asked for help. And Cuba sent 256 doctors. They work very hard. They return, they are in our country today, and when I am coming 2, 3, 4 days before I was here in Toronto, a brigade of Cuban collaborators was sent to Nepal after the earthquake that they had. Many of you asked me during all those days I had been crossing Canada from one side to another. Many of you asked me why can't you do that? Well, I think that we have a good teacher, Fidel. And Fidel showed us how is solidarity, how makes solidarity. We are educated in the idea when somebody can and somebody won't, must go to help another people, nowhere, everywhere in the world. And I repeat, I am honored to be here because I think that today I have the opportunity to represent the more than 140,000 collaborators, health collaborators that my country sent to many countries all over the world. So, it's hard. As I told you beginning, my generation went to Africa. Personally, I was in the orphanage Congo, in Angola during the war. Maybe you don't remember Kangamba battle. I arrived in Luanda in the middle of Kangamba battle in Angola. It's not important. The important thing is that there are thousands of my brothers, doctors, nurses, health technicians working outside today. They continue the tradition. They make history. They are making history. We are the preservers, let's say, because the tradition is now and the caps are now for them. We have a very special program with brothers in Latin America, and it's my pleasure to say here is the consul, the honorable consul of Venezuela and Cuba, two brothers, Chavez and Fidel, are two brothers, and everybody knows that one for other Venezuelans and Cuba are the same people as Latin America, because we don't think that, I must tell you something, to finish. That is something that is not policy, it's the truth. It's only the truth. I visit many countries during my life. I had this opportunity, and I saw what means health in other countries that are having the system that we have today. Because in Cuba, health is not a business. Health is a human right. And it's written in our constitution. It's written in our constitution that in the article number 50 said that everyone has the right to be healthy, attended, and protected, and the state guarantees this right. So our work is to save life and to help any other people all over the world. So Fidel teaches us many things, that including that many people, many countries send soldiers to other countries. We send doctors, and this is the good. Thanks again, because I know you are, there are many people here for talk, and for me it's finished. Thank you for coming, and thank you for
little musical chairs to keep things moving. So, I'm not going to say anything else. I think we want to hear from Fernando. So vamos a darle otro aplauso fuerte, compañero.
It is an honor for me to be here with you. I wanted the doctor to go first, because it's an explanation that needed to be made on Cuban long history of cooperation in health sector, but a very significant part of the Cuban cooperation in the world in the health sector, and long history of that. And it's also a way to start my comments. And I go back to that because first of all, I want to thank you all for the years of company when we were in prison, the years of efforts in solidarity, support, events, activities in this country where long parts of the year are the climate is, or the weather is very hostile, and you were there throughout the country, in the streets, in front of the U.S. consulates and embassy, claiming and demanding our freedom, and coming up with ideas and initiatives, applying all your creativity and ingenuity, and really, on behalf of myself, on behalf of my full brothers and our families, we are very grateful to you. We express our gratitude. We say thank you, and there are no ways to really express how deeply grateful we are to all of you for your commitment to the struggle that was crowned with a victory on December the 17th when our 3 remaining brothers were sent back to Cuba. It was it is a huge victory, and a victory that belongs to you too. A victory that belongs to all friends of Cuba throughout the world that contributed their efforts, their resources, their energy. Sometimes people ask me, are you tired of people coming up to you and asking you for this or that? And I say, well, when I was in prison, those people never said I'm tired. And they always went out and did what they needed to do. And when they were asked to do, or what the consciousness told them to do, in order for us to be never enough for me to say thank you. And that's why I use the word so much, because we are really indebted to you. We owe you our freedom, you and all friends of Cuba around the world. And in many of the meetings like these if I have throughout Cuba or with friends coming to Cuba from all the countries, they always, the question about why did we, or why were we able to resist or withstand the conditions and the years, that's a question that always comes up. And that's why I wanted the doctor to speak first. Because when he speaks and he explains what he just did, it is easy to understand. And the pride to be part of a society, a revolution, a social project that is able to do what our doctors have done throughout the world, is something that is worth defending, and is something that we believe is going to be the future of the world. And one day, I'm sitting in my cell. It's around 4:30 in the afternoon. There is always the most important count in prison is 4 o'clock. 4 o'clock count is stand-up count. After that count, when that count clears, the officer working in the unit passes out the mail. And I go there, I receive my many letters and other literature and papers that I usually receive. And I go back to my bunk, and I sat there and start browsing through the mail, trying to organize it in a way in which I prioritize certain items in the mail, pieces of mail, depending where it came from. And all of a sudden, I looked at an envelope, and it calls my attention because it was something different. And I looked at where it come from. I looked at it. I didn't recognize the stamp, and I looked at where is it coming from, and it was coming from a place that I hardly knew, the island of Nauru in the Pacific. And I just said, well, let me see what this is, and I opened it and I read it. It was a letter from a Cuban doctor in an island in the Pacific with 10,000 inhabitants. The island is just probably a volcano with some areas for the 10,000 inhabitants of the island. And there, in that island, in the Pacific, Cuba had a group of doctors and nurses taking care of the population in that area. And I felt so proud at that moment. And I felt so happy to be a Cuban and to be a part of a revolution that was willing to do such a thing. And it added to the list of things that made it worth to do whatever it took to defend that process. It's something that I always try to include in my comments or in my, because I never felt so proud. I almost had to go to an atlas to look it up and say where this island is here. And there we had our doctors, our nurses, people that could probably very literary problems, and we had it there. So it explains why I had a doctor here, and I asked him to go first, because I was not going to a long history of the case that you all know about, or any other topics that I might think that I'm covering the interest of the audience, and I would rather have you ask the questions or inquire about anything that you want to know about the fight or what we're doing now, or I don't know, whatever you want to ask about. But I wanted to first of all thank you and express our gratitude. I felt that I needed to do that before anything else. So with those opening remarks, brief remarks, I will give the floor to you for you to ask the questions, and I will try to answer them as best as I can.
And I'm sorry, you know, it's the job of the MC to screw things up, right? I'm gonna live up to the expectation. And before we take questions from the floor, I would like to turn it over to Professor Quijales, who has some important words that I think we'll want to and need to hear. Yeah.
My words have to do with our expression of gratitude
to Cuba, for what Cuba has been doing for people throughout the world, people who find themselves in crises, disasters, health crises, and so on. You know that Cuba started, first of all, to have to attend to crises within Cuba, such as responding to hurricanes. You remember the hurricanes such as Flora that did tremendous damage to Cuba in the early 1960s. These disasters kept cropping up from place to place, and there was a terrible one in Central America in 2005. And at that time, Cuba decided that it wouldn't be sufficient to just respond to what was happening, what these crises that came up, that there should be a brigade prepared for responding to these crises. And so they set up something called the Henry Reeve Brigade in 2005. And that brigade was responding, first of all, to the damage caused by Hurricane Mitch. Tremendous, terrible, horrific damage. And after that time, these hurricanes, earthquakes, and other crises were causing great damage. Some of you probably remember that we had here as a consul, the Senor Delgado. He used to tell me that there was a terrible earthquake in Peru, and in order to respond to that earthquake, the brigade went there. And he was in charge of the brigade. When he reached there, about 2 hours after he reached, Fidel Castro called him as head of the brigade and asked him how many patients the brigade had attended to. And he said, well, Comandante, we will just come, and we were trying to set up here. Fidel said, I'll call you back in half an hour. So this is the spirit that was imbued in these brigades by Fidel. And the response, as soon as we hear of terrible disasters, we know that there is going to be a Cuban response to them. And we know about the Ebola crisis. And after that, following sharp on the heels, terrible earthquake in Nepal that caused so much damage. And there, on the 12th of May, the brigade arrived. The brigade arrived, and the brigade set up the following day. And the brigade there has by now attended to some 2,000 people. They set up a field hospital equipped with what we expect to find normally in hospitals. Emergency rooms, operating theaters, x-rays, and so on. All the facilities needed for a hospital. And the hospital is functioning, served by now some 2,000 people. It's impressing people throughout the world, including, I got information about this from a blog that's being published in Jamaica by a friend of mine. And I'm really proud of that blog because it shows that the spirit is being captured in different parts of the world, and in neighboring countries such as Jamaica, people are being very impressed by what the Cubans are doing. So the work done by the brigade has, unfortunately, in one case, not been appreciated. Because you remember when Hurricane Katrina happened in the United States, in New Orleans, that people were suffering. The brigade was prepared, ready to leave for New Orleans,
and kept being frustrated by not getting permission to travel to the United States. And ultimately, it was frustrated. The United States administration didn't permit the brigade to attend, even though US citizens were dying on the sidewalks of their cities. Well, in the rest of the world, the appreciation has been great. And we have been here in Toronto and in Canada in general, been responding to these emergencies. We've been quite expert, I must say, at fundraising to help Cuba in these efforts to help people throughout the world. And our efforts have been really quite good, except in this last case of the Ebola. We organized, the CNC in Canada, organized a campaign to help the victims of Ebola through Cuba. You know, the best way of helping people, I've found, it's my experience, that the best way of helping people throughout the world is to do it through Cuba. There's no doubt about that.